Hello chess friends and welcome to that of Chess channel and welcome to the TCEC Season 20 Super Final between the two top engines LC0 and Stockfish NNUE. So after many rounds the result is clear, probably Stockfish NNUE will win again a new TCEC season because Stockfish has a comfortable 3-point lead. And in the game 77 I think the decisive moment of this Super Final happened. It was in the Najdorf in which Stockfish NNUE played again an outstanding attack. Najdorf Sicilian is always sharp, but this what Stockfish NNUE is doing is really incredible. We have seen really some beautiful Najdorf games in human chess. Of course, we have seen also the great attack recently by Esipenko against the world champion Magnus Carlsen, but this is really something else that Stockfish NNUE is doing, really with some great decoys, deflection, double attacks, all of these beautiful tactical elements that can happen in the chess game. Be prepared. This is probably even the best game so far in this super final. So as usual in the top engine games, we have the sound round 1 and fight, of course. So e4 played by Stockfish NNUE. We have c5 by Lila, knight to f3, d6. This was still prearranged. d4, c takes d4, knight d4, knight to f6, knight to c3, a6, the Najdorf Sicilian. So here bishop to e3, standard stuff. On e6 we have the Chevening setup, and now f3, here this English attack with preparation to play g4, h4, g5, h5, so really breaking through on the king side. So knight to c6, normal ideas, queen to d2, preparing queenside castling, and now bishop to e7, queenside castling, kingside castling, and now g4, immediately attacking. And here knight to d7 was the last prearranged move. From this point on, the engines had to calculate the position for themselves. So let's see what Stockfish does. When we attack, we want to see really the best next attacking move. So sometimes we get distracted, and sometimes we're checking out a little bit. We're not finding the best next attacking moves. Of course, Stockfish plays now a great attacking move. It's the move h4, and many of us wouldn't maybe see this kind of a move because we would try something else. We would try maybe to support first with the rook, then try g5, then try h4, which would be sort of a loss of tempo, because h4 is a possible move, because if you take, then your bishop gets trapped after knight takes c6, b takes c6, and now g5, the bishop is locked, the bishop is attacked, you have only one square to escape, and now f4 is a possibility, or knight to e2 is even a faster win, because you have only one square to escape with your bishop, and then f4, you could maybe sacrifice the bishop for the pawn on b2, but maybe you can get some kind of attack on the b file, but still everything is protectable with bishop to d4, bishop to c3, maybe then after something worth playing something bishop to g2 and competing here on the b file. We're continuing the game with one piece up, and it's game over simply for black. So I see h4, really great attacking move immediately. Knight takes d4, we have bishop to d4, and now b5, standard stuff also by black. We have this opposite side attack game. I've mentioned many times the kings are all castled on opposite sides, so that's why we have to be fast. For who is faster on the attack will probably win the game. So here g5 by Stockfish NNUE, we have queen to c7, h5. You see Stockfish seems to be a little bit faster here, although the evolution is about equal. But now b4 by Lila c0, and we have now knight to a4. I really liked this Stockfish idea not to play the move a3. There are this common a3 moves in which we're protecting our b4 square. Then black cannot create this attack against the knight. The problem now after b4 is, if you go here with your knight to b1, then the queen could sneak in. You could have a vulnerable a2 pawn. Here knight to a4 was played by Lila c0. I'm seeing also many games in human level here, but they are really in this international master level, so not in top grandmaster level. This position has been never reached, for instance, in a game between Carlsen, Caruana, or maybe this other top grandmasters. Knight to a4, we have queen to a5 attacking the knight, and the problem is now you see we have a double attack against the knight and also against this pawn on g5. But it's not a problem here for Stockfish NNUE. You know that Stockfish really loves to sacrifice some pawns. Here after move b3, we have bishop to g5, and now bishop to e3. Here if you try maybe knight to c5, I've also analyzed this line. If you try maybe to get this knight somehow out of the way and maybe try to get your a2 pawn here and creating some dangerous stuff here on the a file, it's not a problem. We can immediately take knight takes c5, d takes c5, bishop to b2, and if you try to grab now the pawn, it's not so good, because then you get bishop to c4, and now this bishop's activity by both of these bishops is simply too much to handle. With the support of these two rooks here on the g and the h file, the queen can sneak in, queen to f4, queen to e5, threatening checkmate. A possible continuation would be maybe queen to a5. There are maybe better moves, but I wanted to show you what happens if you simply grab a pawn on a2, queen to a5, queen to f4. You see, you cannot compete anymore on dark squares. You cannot get the queen to c7. Now if you try bishop to b7, let's see, also possible line here, queen to f4, queen to e5 wins the game immediately. You cannot challenge anymore. Bishop to f6, f6 is not a possibility. Then you get queen to e6, king to h8, a forced move, and then h6. We're breaking through. It's game over. It's a forced checkmate in 6. You have to take it, and then we can take out this one, and it's, as I said, simply game over. We have this discovered attack possibility with f7 opening this long diagonal. You can maybe sacrifice some material, but again, it's simply game over. We can use our rook on the g file again. Nothing dramatic here can change. White is simply winning. So here, after move queen to a5, we see b3, bishop to g5. So here Lila c0 grabs the pawn. It's still an equal game, but there is one problem. There is a flip side to the coin of this particular line. Of course, we have now an open g file. That's something that we can use. Then maybe even push the pawn here on g6, getting our bishop into the attack. And always what we have to notice in neither of Sicilian games, if maybe our tactical sequence goes wrong, if maybe our tactics are not working, if we maybe cannot see some great attacking possibilities, then sometimes it's also good in some occasions to go simply after a weak d6 pawn, then maybe to simplify the game, going after the pawn, getting use of our d file. So but that's only a possibility when as I said, when something went wrong in our attack. Of course, Stockfish NNUE is not going for that pawn. Stockfish NNUE wants to create dynamics, wants to create checkmate threats. So here, after the move bishop to g5, we have bishop to e3, and again, if you try to take bishop to e3, queen to e3, queen to e5, then rook, king to b1 can be a possibility, and you can try maybe f5, but now bishop to c4 will happen. You see this bishop's activity is great here. If you trade off, I think we can even trade off the queens now, because as we said, when our tactics are not working, then it's simply time to go for the d6 pawn. Then afterwards, the e6 could be a long-term weakness. So even in this scenario, white is much better. The knight has taken both of the squares for the knight. The knight on b6 is not protected. The knight on c5 cannot also happen. So you see, that's, as I said, when you ever see that something is going wrong in the neither, go simply into a simplified line and go after the d6 pawn. So here, bishop to e3, we have h6, Lila c0 fixes the bishop, we have f4, bishop to e7, and now rook to g1. As we said, we lost the pawn, but we have now a great activity on the g file. It's really similar to the game played by Esipenko against Magnus Carlsen, where also Esipenko sacrificed one pawn for the initiative and then managed to outplay the world champion with a great common knight of sacrifice with the knight takes b5. So you can also check out the game. I've analyzed it recently in the Tata Steel tournament 2021. It was really sharp knight. So rook to g1, king to h8, we have now e5. Great move by Stockfish NNUE. Now Stockfish found really a different way how to grab this pawn. This was really a nice attack. What's the idea about this move? After the move e5, the long diagonal here has opened. If you try here rook to take, d takes e5, then you get queen to g2. We have the double attack checkmate threat on g7, and also here an attack against the rook. So you see how Stockfish uses the files, diagonals, really this dynamics all over the board. Stockfish always finds good ways to connect, for instance, a file like this, like the g file, with the diagonal. So Stockfish is using this whole board. This was a really incredible move. e5 wins now the pawn, and we have now a very, very dangerous pass pawn, which causes now many troubles here for Lila C0. Bishop to f6, and now a3. You cannot take, of course, the queen is hanging, but it's a good line to a little bit splash your opponent's attack. Here after the move a3, e5 was played, and Stockfish simply develops here the bishop on c4. Of course, the Stockfish uses now new activities. The king cannot go anymore to the g file. It's very dangerous. The problem is now this rook is stuck also a little bit on f8. You don't want to play with your rooks like this. You want to play freely with your rook. So this is a very, very good move here by Stockfish, and he cuts off really Black's activity here. E takes f4 was played, and here bishop to d4. Bishop to f4. Bishop takes f4 is not so good. Knight to e4 5 is a sort of a line that can help out here Black. It's an equal game then from this point on, because knight to c5 is not a possibility anymore. That's the problem, because you get this tactic bishop takes h6. Bishop takes h6. It's something that Black is always to take care of. Here in the game, after move bishop to knight to e5, if you try this one, then bishop to h6 doesn't work anymore, because you get knight to c4. That's the difference between these two lines. You can maybe create this check, but nothing can happen, because here queen to e5 will happen, and you have to trade off the queens, who simply recapture with the knight. So that's why after move bishop to d4, here this was the continuation after potential bishop takes f4, but here bishop to d4 was played by Stockfish and NNUE. Here queen to f5. Again, if bishop takes d4 happens, then queen to d4, and if you try to trade off the queens, that's the point here. We can play then a takes b4. If you try to trade off the queens, again queen to d4, rook to d4, rook to d4, and now rook to f4, and this is now much better game, although the material is equal, but this is such an advanced pawn. You will have troubles to stop this pawn. What white should probably do now in the continuation is to play simply c4, c5, connect these two pawns on the 6th rank, and then it would be really game over. So that's why here bishop to d4, Lila tries also to defend, tries to stay with many pieces on the board. In the game, rook to f1 played by Stockfish and NNUE, now bishop to g5, and we have now reached really the critical moment of the game. Pause the video and try to see now the best next move. It's of course a top engine move. Many of us wouldn't even dare to think about this move, and let's try it out.
Test your might.
Test your might in chess. So maybe you can see a great line, but it's really unclear even after that move, because this tactics that Stockfish and NNUE has prepared is so wild, it's so incredible. Here Stockfish and NNUE played simply rook takes g5, and after queen to g5, after queen to g5 it would be a bad game, because you get simply rook to g1, and you have some troubles here on the g file, so you have to take with the h pawn. But the problem is now that we have now this idea. We have the idea to play the move h6, and that's why here rook to e1 first played by Stockfish and NNUE, cutting off again the e file. We want to get our rook here on the 7th rank, where we could create again new dynamics. In the game, f6 was played. You have to lock here this long diagonal for the dark square bishop. h6 was a serious threat, but now rook to e7, and you see now how Stockfish simply uses all of the pieces in the attack. We have f3, which is of course a normal idea. We have a pass pawn, but still this square is protected by the queen and the rook, and here h6 finally Stockfish and NNUE is breaking through. Here g takes h6 was played, and now king to b2, improving the position of the king. The king is now secured. We have now a great bishop's activity towards the king side. This rook is cutting off here the 7th rank. The queen is very active. The queen is active, but we'll have to find new activities for the queen. The queen will not stay there forever, and also we could also try to improve our knight activity. So So that's how you think in chess. You evaluate your strengths of your pieces, then when a piece is not good, then we're trying to improve it. So here after f2, bishop to f2, knight to e5, here bishop to d5, played by Stockfish NNUE. When you get attacked in chess, it's very important to find the best next active square. So many of us would retreat maybe to f1, but that's not the spirit of attacking chess. You should play the best next attacking move, trying to search the best next attacking square. Bishop to d5, bishop to d7, and now again an improvement of the minor piece, knight to c5. Now the pieces are really dancing, the pieces are glued together, the pieces are playing in a great harmony. You see all of these pieces are centralized, which is very good. And now of course there are many tactical possibilities. Bishop to c6, again we're searching for new activities. You see, when we get challenged, we don't want to trade off the pieces when we're on the attacking side, because simplification line would be devastating here for white if the position gets cleared. If black defends this position, you see now we have 3 connected pass pawns here, so you should never allow now a simplification. That's why Stockfish is trying to stay with the pieces on the board, is creating new attacking possibilities. Bishop to e6, queen to f4, bishop to e3, queen to g3, and now queen to d4. We have now b takes a3. King to a2 was played, but you can also take, the evaluation is simply slightly better here after move king to a2. King to a3 is also a possibility in the game. Rook to e8, and again we got challenged, and maybe we can pause the video and try to see again the best next active move without trading the pieces. So again, it's sort of a question, so
test your might.
Okay, that's really this attacking style that you should sometimes realize in your own games. When we are at the attacking side, we don't want to trade off pieces, we want to create new activities. So that's why here in the next move Stockfish played rook to c7, because there is now this threat. If you for instance play something like dubious like a5, then you get rook takes c6. After knight takes c6, you see queen to f6, and it's a checkmate in 3. So that's why you have to be careful here, and that's why you have to always find new attacking possibility. Rook to c7, we have queen to g2, queen to c3 protecting, queen to f3, and now bishop to d4. Here Stockfish undermines the pressure, but the only really active piece by black is the queen, and it wasn't really a bad choice to simply trade off the queens. Bishop takes queen to c3, bishop takes c3, because our activity is still good. This knight is simply stuck here because there is always the threat to take out the pawn on f6, then even to get the rook here on g7, and then it would be even a checkmate. So you have to be careful. There are now really great attacking possibilities in the game. Bishop to f3 was played by LC0, getting out of the range. Again, if you try a5, we'll simply play bishop takes e5 and then rook takes c6. So it's really bad here position for black. Bishop to f3 was played, bishop to f5, as again searching a new attacking possibility. Now there is always this threat even to play rook to h7 in the game. Rook to d8, we have bishop to g6. This was really incredible move by Stockfish and NNUE, sacrificing the bishop, but then this bishop comes into the game. Bishop to f6, we have the fork. You have to only one square here. King to g8, and now comes rook to g7. We have king to f8, and now d7. This pawn is rolling. You have to move up the rook. Rook to e2 was played. There is a line if you try rook to e1. You see now why it isn't important maybe to play rook to e1. It's still a bad move. Both moves are bad because white is much better here in the position. Here we can take bishop to d8. You can take out the rook, and now after potential bishop to c2, if you try to get back with your rook here to d1, there is always this move knight to d3 to cutting off here the connection on the d file, and there's nothing that can be done. White will simply promote a new queen to d8. So that's why it doesn't matter where you go with this rook here. After the move d7, rook to e2 was played, but now bishop to d8, again the same idea, and again bishop to a5, nothing can happen here. Rook to c2 with the check, king to a3, but again you cannot protect anymore this position. Rook to c5, at least in this scenario LC0 grabbed piece, but now d8 the promotion. We have rook to c6, Bishop to c3, great move. You see now, after rook takes c3, we have queen to d4. Lila c0 has lost now this rook. After king to f7, rook takes queen takes rook on c3, bishop to e2, and now we have really a little bit messed up endgame. Now you have to be careful. It is probably winning for white, but you have to be accurate here. First of all, what we can notice about this endgames, there are two plans. The first plan is get our king active. The king has to move now towards the king side because black is here. Two connected pass pawns, has also two minor pieces, so the minor pieces could protect the king. What black should never allow here in this particular case is white to grab the pawn on a6, because if that happens, then white has here a pass pawn, and then maybe this one of these minor pieces will be deflected to the defense of the potential promotion. Then white could maybe grab a minor piece, and then it would be again a completely winning endgame. Here, rook to queen to h2, double attack. First, you see we have grab now this pawn. Here, king to f5. We have queen to h7, and still it's really hard to win this game. First, as we said, we have to move our king towards the king side. Here, after a couple checks, Stockfish and NNUE maneuver the king here simply to the king side. Queen to d8, and again trying to sneak in somehow with your king. Of course, you're vulnerable to some attacks, to some checks, but the king is not endangered here. Of course, the white's king is not endangered. The white's king should never be treated something that you have now to defend in this position. You have to use now your king in order to win the game. So queen to d1, d2, king to f2, and now a couple of checks again, and again a new active move by the king. The king has to participate now in the attack. Bishop to d7, king to h5. We have now again new checks, and now queen to g4. You see again the king doesn't find good squares in to get into the game, but still after king to f5, again a new check. Here you see Stockfish and NNUE tries now different path to go with the king, and now after check we have now b4, knight to h3, queen to g3. We have queen to d6, knight to h3, and now finally we have grabbed now this pawn, and that was our goal, to get this pass pawn situation here. King to h2, queen to d6, simply moving the pawn further. We have b6, g3, b7. You can maybe give up here the bishop, but again it comes with a check, and we'll simply get our way here. We get our king to f3, so again it's simply winning. Here in the game, knight to f2 was played, and now we have a new queen. King takes d5, and in this position Lila c0 resigned. But as I said, this was this endgame. There are many lines, there are many moves. It's sometimes really annoying to watch this 50 moves then when the endgame is on. So I decided here to be a little bit faster, but as I said, the main strategical goal of this endgame was simply to get our king towards the king side and try to grab this pass pawn. After that, it was a completely winning endgame here for white. So incredible attack again by Stockfish and NNUE with beautiful tactical elements, with this rook sacrifice on g5, getting a pawn mobility, getting a new piece activity, playing the next active move, finding next active squares in the position. Didn't allow here black some simplifications. Really beautiful chess game, and probably maybe even the best chess game from this TCEC season 20 superfinal. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more brutal attacks like this, check out my commented chess games played by computer series. Here is the link, and if you want to see the humans battling in their best chess games, check out my best chess games of all time series. Here's also the link, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.